Hi, everyone. It is great to be here. The past few months have been challenging for our industry, and it's made it hard for PMs to plan out their careers. And one thing that's helped me is thinking about our careers as a journey. Some of it is going to be a bit harder and more challenging, and some of it is going to be beautiful views where we can relax and just enjoy the surroundings around us. Adithi, what have you found to be a helpful framework for getting through these challenging times?
Thank you, Anika. It's great to be collaborating with you again. And hi, everyone. Um, it's a great question. In my case, it's not really a framework, but more of a mindset that I have been striving to develop. It's the notion that nothing is constant, change is the only constant. I heard from an Indian guru once talking about change, and what he was essentially saying was, we inhale this moment, and the next moment we exhale. That is a change. So, the very essence of physical reality is change. If we resist change, we're essentially resisting the process of life. Of course, like change becomes very difficult for us to deal with as we get older. However, we have to learn to embrace it. What we are seeing today in the tech industry, I view it as a market correction. In the future, it could be another technology, something like generative AI that could make our skill set less relevant than today. Uh, so, what we need to do is really cultivate adaptability and invest in learning on an ongoing basis.
Well, one thing I've learned from these times and all this change is that we really need to be thinking about both building up our careers and also recession proofing them. In this last series of layoffs, women were 65% more likely to be impacted.
For sure, I think it requires forethought and some proactive planning on our parts. We have prepared together three strategies for building a lasting career in product. The first one is working towards mastery. This is about continuing to expand and enhance one's skills in order to reach our career goals. The second is managing career transitions. It's about keeping up with the industry trends, assessing and managing risks in order to make transitions in our career. The last thing, perhaps the most important thing, is networking and using networking as a crucial lever to find new opportunities. So let's start talking about working towards mastery. Anika, as product managers, we have to constantly focus on skill development to stay relevant in our space. Sometimes it could be about incremental growth, where we focus on getting better on day to day PM activities like road mapping, requirement writing. Whereas other times it could be about venturing into a new space altogether and learning in that space. Can you tell me about a time when you had to decide or pick on a skill or area that you wanted to focus on in order to stay relevant?
Yeah, of course. And, there are so many skills that PMs have to have that are table stakes. And then there's this other set of skills that can make you like really stand out. And they depend on the, industry that you're in as a PM and your particular organization. But what I have found helpful is to really figure out what is shared between my own interests and my own affinity, like what I'm naturally good at and makes me play to my strengths, and also what's a match for the market. So for me, when I looked around in my role at Disney, I was the PM for the growth platform. And I realized that there was a chance to do experimentation. So specifically, I was leading an experimentation team for billing. And I realized that I just loved it. Billing can be a very, very dry subject, but the experimental portion of it was really, really very interesting. And they had built out an ML model to power the billing engine, and there were so many different permutations to test out and then yield results and build the insights from those results back into our product. And that was work I just really naturally threw myself into. And the experimentation team that I led won an award at the end of our work together. So that was a great experience for me. So when I was looking to transition out of Disney, I looked for chances to expand on experimentation. My current role at Amazon has a ton of experimentation as part of my job. And I'm also going to be participating in the Web Lab Bar Raiser program, which is our experimentation program at Amazon. So I really encourage you all to find that, what's at the nexus of your interests and playing to your strengths, and also look at those skills in light of what is marketable and what people need, to build great products, and really lean into that kind of thing and make it a thread throughout your career.
That's a great story, Anika. I love how you talked about a framework where you're focusing on something that you're passionate about, while at the same time, like it allowed you to garner more depth in a space that is of high value for product managers in the market. Great story.
Adithi, do you have a story about when you ventured into a new domain and picked up some new skills?
Yeah, many for many years I was a product manager in the ad tech space. When I was looking for a change, it was going to be very easy for me to find a role as an ad tech PM. However, at that point, I felt like I didn't want to be stereotyped as an ad tech PM, and I wanted to expand my horizon. So I ended up declining some high-paying job offers in the ad space to take on a role at Walmart to be a product lead in the e-grocery space. I had never worked in the e-commerce space before. So for me, this role at Walmart was going to be a place where I'm going to learn a new domain and expand my breadth of expertise. I think today the combination of advertising and e-commerce background has made me a more well-rounded PM. So unlike your scenario where you went deep and into experimentation, in my case I ended up having to pivot to learn a new domain in order to stay relevant in the market.
That's a great story. And I think both our stories together really illustrate the point about what PMs have to do. We have to have very, very deep skills in certain areas, but then we also have to have a breadth of experience to be able to, spot industry trends and build better products. So, yeah, no, thanks for that story. So far, we've really stayed within the use cases of being on the job and expanding your skills on the job. But what about your broader life? Do you think that just life experience can add to PM skills?
Yeah, for sure. Skills are not something that you develop on the job, especially for us product managers. There is a lot more that we can learn from outside of our day to day work or outside of just the product management world. Um, Maybe I'll talk about something that I did many years ago, even before I became a PM. So this was a nonprofit role that I took on as a founding board member of a real estate nonprofit. The organization was focused on identifying and converting farmland into residential plots and selling them. So the tasks that I was involved in were scouting for like the right location, understanding like all the legal considerations, given that this was in a highly regulatory environment like India, dealing with different stakeholders like lawyers, government officials, architects, and engineers. It also meant working with a cross functional group of members to get the job done. And what that meant was sometimes I had to just execute and follow the orders and just get things done. Whereas other times I had to step up and lead. So through this building experience in the physical world, I learned a lot of skills. Skills like organizational ability, leadership skills, or even interpreting like complex legal and policy considerations, and how to adapt to that. I, Looking back, I think all of this experience has enriched me to become a better PM. In fact, even in my current role at Meta, I think I have to deal with a lot of like privacy and regulatory inputs. And that has become a lot easier due to this past experience that I had over a decade ago. So my advice to everyone who's taking a break from a full-time job or even just having some spare time is do something outside of your work. It could be pursuing a hobby, it could be volunteering, or it could even be traveling. These um, these things not only help you rejuvenate, but it also helps you develop or hone your skills such as creativity, leadership ability, negotiation ability, all of which will allow you to be a better leader in the workplace.
I love that example because volunteering for me is, not. It can be this like great place to like build up your skills, but it's also so fulfilling. So it's so wonderful that you were to able to marry those two, and then it just ended up benefiting your PM career as well.
Yeah, for sure. Um, I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about managing career transitions. I know that you have done a bunch of career transitions. I want you to elaborate a little bit on situation or situations where you had to actively manage transition in your career, and how did you actually go about doing that? What kind of tactics did you apply when you made that transition?
Yeah. So, the example that comes to mind is the most recent career transition I had from Disney to Amazon. I was really happy at Disney. I had a great role leading the subscription growth platform, but I wanted to build. I wanted to continue to build my career. And there was a bit of a ceiling, at Disney, just the way the org was structured. And so I went out and garnered a bunch of offers. And then when I was evaluating between the offers, I realized a few things that made this role at Amazon very special. And that is that it was being the PM for two very broad areas. So I work in podcasts, and I'm the PM for voice and search. So they're very broad areas. They have a lot of experimentation involved, especially on the search side, which, as I mentioned earlier, is how I differentiate myself as a PM. And the org itself is very, very lean, and there is absolutely no redundancy. So I would not be bumping up into another PM, and we wouldn't have overlap in work. I have, my own domain that I can lead, which is really, really great. As you build your career and build out the product roadmap. And the other thing that I noticed is that podcast is very, very fast growing at Amazon. And so not only is the org lean, but the lean org is producing just a really, really phenomenal amount of growth. And so all these things got me very, very excited to make this transition to Amazon. And as I look at the layoff landscape and all these technology companies that are shedding resources, I really see that these qualities that I looked for as parts of career growth when I was making the transition, they also contribute to orgs that are more recession proof, right? Because there isn't this double coverage. It's so lean, and orgs that are fast growing are less likely to be cut. So continuously growing your career also contributes to just being in situations where you're less likely to be impacted by recession. So yeah, that's my story of my career transition. I'm really happy at Amazon right now.
Yeah, that's a great takeaway, where it looks like you focused on finding an opportunity where you can make a lot of impact, and the byproduct of that is helping you find a role that also ends up being recession proof, if I may say so. So, great takeaway. I think we always have to look for opportunities in our careers where we truly can make an impact. We can add value to the role that we are in.
Yep. So far, we've really talked about our individual careers as PMs and how to build within your PM path. But do you have any tips or tactics on like broader, like keeping an eye out for industry trends and which companies are the best to join and which ones are building great products?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think I can talk about a couple of tactics that I follow very often. And the key there is consistency. Um, the tactics are, very basic things, right? There are a few companies that I have followed through the years. And these are the companies that I respect, and maybe one day I may want to work for them. So what I do for those companies is, one, like, read up their quarterly and annual reports. It sounds very basic, but it's so important, and it's so full of information when you read these reports. I also sometimes read the analyst reports, of course, taking it with a pinch of salt, because there's a lot of perspectives that come in from there about these companies. I also look at products or new businesses they're standing up. I read their press releases. I take the product and actually use them and critique them from a consumer lens. I sometimes tend to discuss with family and friends about my experience on using the product. I think these all sound like very basic things. But as I said earlier, the key there is consistently doing that in order to keep oneself up to date on these products and companies and services.
Cool. And then, yeah, I have another tip to add to that. I think that's great advice. And as PMs, we should all be doing it because we should be keeping an eye on the market. But SEC reports, they can be like really, really thick financial documents, and not everybody wants to spend their spare time diving into that. And we have ChatGPT now. So what I've been doing a lot is for just industry reading or news. I just kind of run things through ChatGPT and ask it to summarize for me, and that's been a great way of just getting the key information that I need, but it's directly from a source document like an SEC report. So no, thank you for that story. It's great.
That's a great one. It's also a great way for you to dog food chat GPT, right? Because there is so many different ways you can use that product. And we traditionally tend to think of it more in the search world. But today we are forced to think of how we even input or query chat GPT in a different way. So that itself has been a learning for me. Great input.
Yeah, no, I've been using it a lot in my life. So I want to switch to our third strategy, which is networking. So networking can be, kind of blasé advice. Of course, you're supposed to do it, but really, I want to get into some success stories that we've both had, and really make it, less of a check mark and more of inspiration to really like meet the right people and build relationships and offer help to the people that you're networking with, and also be able to leverage their help at the right times in your career. So what's your best story about networking in your PM career?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think for me, one thing I've learned with networking is there is no instant gratification. Sometimes a relationship may give something back to you, sometimes it may not. But the key thing there is focusing on investing in relationships for the long haul. Let me talk about a situation where I actually landed a role. due to my network. It's an interesting story where many years ago I was in business school, and while in business school, we're always taught to network, right? And I was doing an internship at Amazon back then, where my focus was building as many relationships as possible, not just with people who worked at Amazon, but also my fellow peers from other business schools who were there just like me, working for that summer. So I ended up building relationship with one of these females from another business school, and I kept in touch with her over the years. A few years after, when I was looking for a role, I was interviewing with one of these companies called Quinstreet, where I was trying to find someone who had worked there or who knew someone there, so I can learn more about the company. So at that point, I found her, and I learned that she had actually done the role the role that I was interviewing for. So I reconnected with her. She gave me a lot of insights about what are the pain points day to day in that role. She also told me what are the core like business challenges the company is facing, and what and that really gave me a new insight where I felt like I almost worked for the company by the time I went to interview for the company. So fast forward, I actually ended up getting the role. I took on the role, and I got promoted in that role within like 6 months. And honestly, the reason I was able to do that was because by the time I started in the role, I felt like I knew exactly what problems I need to prioritize and go and solve for that and to get some wins within the first few months in the company. So the takeaway for me is, I invested in a relationship. I didn't know how this relationship was gonna like help me in the future, but I just decided to do that because for me it's very important to strengthen and have these relationships, not just to take from them but also give to them as well when it's necessary. And down the line it may come of a help or it may not, right? But the key thing there is like continuously invest in building network, with not expecting a lot in return. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Um, I'm curious to learn about your experience, Anika. Like, what are some effective ways of networking you have found over the years?
Yeah, so my story is actually from the same transition from Disney to Amazon. And, Phil Terry, I think he's actually a speaker at Women in Product, but his book, Never Search Alone, is a fantastic one if you're looking for a job. And it really talks about how to build in support by developing a network. And so the book hadn't come out yet, but somebody had told me about this concept. And so I gathered a group of women in product who were looking for the same kinds of roles. So we met on a weekly basis, and we encouraged each other, and we shared information about different companies, and helped to with intros to recruiters. And so it was this way of just meeting every week to really focus on our job search, what's working, what's not working, what are some ideas we can implement. But the biggest thing that I got from it is really knowing that I'm not alone. If something didn't go well, somebody else was having a bad week too, and so we could really share that. And I got so much energy from those weekly meetings, and we're still friends today. I think all of us have found good roles that we were looking for from that period in time, and I'm still close friends with a couple of people from that group today. So it's a great example of how you can go through a process alone, or which I have before, or you can go through a process with a network and mutually support each other, and it's just a much better experience. It's much richer, and the outcomes are better too. Because this is, the job that I've been happiest with, and I would say that a lot of the other women from that group felt the same way.
That's a great insight. I think it's something that I would recommend others to try as well. And at some point, if I am looking for a job, then I will certainly do that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I highly recommend that book also. It's a great resource. And then Phil Terry's website also has a bunch of resources that we used. Speaking of resources, Adithi and I were thinking about our strategies and thinking of, ways we could help further beyond our talk. So in the resources section of this conference, we will have some resources for networking, for, how to think about it, for how to approach new people on LinkedIn, how to, conduct these coffee chats, and how to expand them to, like, more people in your network. So just keep a lookout for that.
Thank you, Anika. We are almost at the end of this session. Do you have any final words that you want the audience to remember?
Yes, I think uh, what has really helped me is really thinking about our careers as a journey, rather than a ladder. It's just much more helpful to think of each step in our career as a phase in our journey, and some are harder, some are easier, some are, relaxing. Sometimes you just sit back and take a break, but it's always better when you're traveling with friends, right? So think of your career as a journey, and also gather people around you to journey with who will support you.
Well
How
said,
about you,
Anika.
Aditi? Do you have any last words to leave us with?
Yeah, you had some amazing last thoughts there. I will add to that and say that change is the only constant. We have to come out of our comfort zone and adapt to the ever changing world. We cannot let the environment control us. We have to strive to craft our own path. So, my advice to everyone is focus on what you can control. And what we can control is essentially developing our skill sets, constantly updating our knowledge base in order to stay relevant in the workplace. So, with that, I want to take a moment to thank everyone for listening to Anika and me today, and have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, everyone.